Welcome to the 2019 Winter Outlook. I've been doing this now for I think 5 years, and it's always a pleasure to share my thoughts on winter. So let's get right to it. I made a very bold forecast this year. Everything I'm looking at, and from the experience of doing this, I really think this is going to be an old-fashioned, cold and snowy winter, especially for areas in the eastern third. And the epicenter is likely going to be in the northeast. A lot of factors driving it, but just want to show you the maps here for snowfall. Snowfall is going to follow suit with what we're going to see with the temperatures well above normal snowfall for the northeast, above normal snowfall for the southern part of the country, and then down here I think you can see some flakes too. Out west, I think the mountains will do all right, northern Rockies, but out here I'm expecting warmer than normal conditions and less than normal snowfall. So let's get into how I actually created this forecast for those of you who actually care. It's a combination of a lot of things. The first thing I look at is what's the background state of the atmosphere going to be. And then I look at years that are similar to that in the past, and I try to come up with a forecast. So basically, this year we're going to be looking at something called an El Nino, which is warmer than normal water temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. We're also going to be seeing warmer than normal ocean temperatures in the northeastern Pacific, a warm Atlantic Ocean, and also near the Indian Ocean, which does dry parts of the jet stream. We'll see some colder than normal conditions in the eastern Indian Ocean. So without getting too complicated, if I take the ocean factors and then I combine them with what I think is going to happen with some other factors, such as the strength of the sun, snow cover, and even simple things, guys. For example, one of the things I like to look at now is where's the cold air setting up in the fall. And you could see so far, this is just from 9:20 to yesterday or 2 days ago. A lot of cold air starting to build on our side of the globe, and this is a big sign that there's going to be a good source region for this winter. So as long as we have the jet stream pattern to drive the cold air in, when I see this, I start to say, okay, wait a second, we have some potential here. When I take a look at all the ocean factors I mentioned, and I say, okay, well, what do those look like, those historical years? You could see the output there. So very aggressive forecast from the analogs showing a deep trough of low pressure south the Aleutian Islands, which will pump up and rise a jet stream over the west and cause a lot of cold air to consolidate in the east coast. And you can see up here in Greenland, there's also high pressure. So when you get a pattern like this, a trough, a ridge, and a trough, you get a lot of consolidation of cold air and energy in the east. And when you already have that source region building, like I just showed you in the fall, again, you can start to see things coming together. But now let's go into what are the actual weather models showing, right? Because the weather models are very important. So let's looking at a few models. We'll start off with the American models. And as usual, warm for the winter. But you can see there is some cold air they have up here. If there's a mistake and it's just getting a little too excited with pushing out this ridge, you could see this all get pulled back. As we move on, the European model has been very aggressive with a cold and stormy winter. You can see high pressure over the top, and you can also see lower than normal pressures and storminess to the south. Moving on here, the Japanese model, which is a model I like. This is upside down. You could see a colder than normal pool centered from Great Lakes into the Mid-Atlantic Northeast on the Japanese model. Moving down, the model I really liked over the years has been the British model or the UK Met. You could see what that's showing. Similar to those analogs, you could see a lot of pooling of lower than normal pressures and cold along the east coast here. And again, going back and comparing that to what my analogs were showing, you could see there's a lot of similarities. So I'm starting to see these factors line up between what the oceans are doing, the years in the past that had similar ocean temperature patterns, what that output looks like when you average it together, what the models are showing. You guys can see how I really derived, in simple terms, my winter forecast for this year. So I'm all in. I'm really all in a cold and stormy winter. Frequent cold shots. I think we get started in November this year, and I think it's going to be a very, very snowy period through the heart of winter for most areas. Of course, it will moderate at times, but we already have that snow depth building in Canada. And look, as long as we can get enough blocking over Greenland, we'll have not just a cold and dry pattern, but we'll have a cold and snowy pattern, which is what I'm projecting here. And a big factor I look at there is something called a QBO. Not to get too technical, it's basically winds in the stratosphere near the equator, and they can basically dictate how heat gets transported to the tropics and how high pressure develops. We're in a negative QBO now, which is very good. It's going to be trending positive, but usually when you see values that are more neutral, it doesn't really create too much of a deterrent towards cold and stormy weather. So again, Thanks for checking in, guys. That's my forecast. Feel free to leave comments, and now we just see how this plays out. But I'm excited. I think I'm going to be very busy this winter.